call themselves in MASH in the movie. They're the pros from Dover.
And what is that?
Problem?
They were obviously surgeons during the Korean War, but what does Dover mean? The pros?
Oh, at one point, they have to go to Japan to perform surgery on a high up military officer, and so they take their golf clubs with them for an excursion. And they call them, and when they arrive at the hospital, they kind of boss the staff around and call themselves the pros from Dover. We're taking over. We're like Elon Musk and Doge. We're the pros from Dover. So anyway, that's where that comes from. That's obviously an obscure movie reference, but I wouldn't call MASH all that obscure a movie, though.
No, not obscure. Robert Altman.
You know the funny thing about
Robert Altman.
Absolutely. You know the funny thing about that movie, he got paid somewhere around
Altman.
Okay. Altman, the movie. MASH.
Yeah.
Early in his career, he got paid somewhere around $75,000 to direct that movie.
He didn't have a piece of the series, did he?
What's that? No,
Yeah, okay.
But his 16-year-old son wrote the theme song. Suicide is Painless.
Oh.
They used that song in the TV series. His 16-year-old son pulled away
$20 million.
Far more money from MASH than his dad ever did for directing.
He was 16 when he wrote that?
16 years old, his son was. Well, look at the lyrics. Suicide is painless. It brings on many changes, and you can do it too if you try.
Yeah.
Those are sort of nonsense lyrics, you know?
Yeah. Well, I know that for a long time, I don't know if it is anymore, it was so lucrative to have a jingle or like the Seinfeld, music in the background. But I wanted that, I want to have a little bit of fun this morning just because I was thinking, I want to talk about Straight Time, which is a movie that okay, so I'm just going to say it, Straight Time. For anybody who's listening to this, I'll bet you most of you don't know what it is, okay? Kaylin, do you know what
I've never heard of it before.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the right answer.
Before you get into it, though, I got to do my normal spiel and just tell everybody that's watching on YouTube, if you can, please go and subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify. It'll really help us out. Even if you don't listen there, it'll just help us out. And I got to keep doing that because I check the numbers. A lot of you aren't doing that. So if you could do that for us, it would make a big help us grow our show. And then we'll have super fun people on, like some of the listeners. Like, hey, have you reached out to Sly or Arnold for the show yet? I was like, no, not yet. That would be cool, but not yet.
Here's the thing that I want to talk about Straight Time. Do we have Dustin Hoffman on the line? No.
Then we need to get those Apple and Spotify numbers up first, and then we'll get Dustin Hoffman.
We'll get Dustin Hoffman in here to talk about Straight Time, which is what we're going to talk about. We're going to start by talking about that. We'll end up talking about Tombstone.
We'll get around to it.
Yeah. But I went through my IMDB page. Oh, by the way, you guys were talking the other day. Hey, Michael, you got so many credits that they need a new page for. What was that on?
Wikipedia.
Yeah, you got. It's not the best thing in the world to have like 400 just so you know, Eric Roberts has probably got 2 or 3 pages. It's not always like in this business, more is not necessarily
especially
more.
When most people can't identify most of those
half. Here's the thing that I found very interesting because I went back and. I know that I wanted to talk about Straight Time. It brings back a lot of fond memories of hanging out with you, Jim. But I went on my IMDb page, like that's where I go to kind of look stuff up.
Who doesn't? Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't? Right. And you know how they give everything a score? Everything's got a score. Okay, so. And I don't have any zeros on there, but I've been in some pretty terrible stuff. But everything's got but here's the thing: out of Aliens, Terminator, The Abyss, Tombstone, and The Rock, what do you think my highest approval rating on IMDb is?
What's between those movies?
Well, it's not between those. Now you fucked up my joke. Thank you. It wasn't a joke. It was not a joke. But yeah. Well, those would be the movies that I would look up and go, okay, Jim Cameron, Robert Rodriguez, maybe
Michael Bay,
Tombstone, Michael Bay. Yeah. So
The Rock,
the highest score that I get, well, I'll tell you that the highest score that I get is for something called Die Nacht us Bleh. Okay? Die Nacht us Bleh. Now that is the martyrdom of Saint Sebastian. People might be aware that I did a movie. It's very gay, and
one of the comments in the YouTube comments on this show talks about San Sebastian and says it's the gayest gay movie ever. So I went ahead and Googled it, and oh my God, some of the images from that thing are.
It makes cruising look like a G movie.
You have a fabulous story from the filming of that movie.
I thought you were going to tell me I had a fabulous body in that movie. Basically, I've just got a little loincloth on, and
your hair is real.
But here's the thing: that was a Czechoslovakian director. The crew was Czech. Okay, the company was financed out of Germany. And we shot it in where, Jim? I can't think of the name.
In Turkey.
Turkey.
Ephesus.
Yeah.
Ephesus, which has spectacular Roman ruins.
Yes. Well, it
was one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. These ruins.
It is an incredible. Pamukkale is there too, which is just absolutely incredible. But this is what, Jim, I think what happened on this is this director had, the production, the money, the cameras, the actors, the people to make the martyrdom of Saint Sebastian, right? Which I've never seen, by the way. But, and what I think that he did was he siphoned off a little camera time. He siphoned off a little money. He siphoned me off, put me in some other gay fucking outfit, and shot another movie. On that German company's money. I believe that's.
Oh, wow.
You've heard of that happening before, haven't you?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. We're
that's the Roger Corman school of movie making.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that I'm going to hit Die Nacht us Blief. I'm going to hit this for the first time, and boy, if there's any images of me in here, it should be, oh, look at me. Oh, boy, that does look gay. Holy mackerel.
Did you look one up?
Well, I just looked up the first shot.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I look like a woman there, man. That is like, I've never seen that before.
I think that wasn't that movie. Didn't that movie open on in West Hollywood somewhere?
Well, no.
Sure did.
At a movie theater in West Hollywood, yeah.
Usually
the
it says
Tomcat Theater.
users reviews. It gets a bunch of 10s. I think the only people who could have seen this movie are gay people, gay men. There's 13 images. Let me just. I have to look. I have to see if I can go to these images. Oh, see y'all. Oh boy!
Yeah, I'm gonna scroll through a couple of these on the YouTube
channel.
Oh
boy! Yeah.
The audience is seeing a couple of Rolodex right now.
Oh boy! Yeah. Okay. All right. What is? Oh yeah. That was. They brought me in. They were going to try to teach me to dance. There's one shot in there where somebody's dancing. They brought me in there to teach me to dance, and fucking after about a day or two, they're like, we're going to double to do it. We're going to double to do that. Reminds me of Remember, is that Ray Sharkey who did the Idolmaker?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Was a wonderful, wonderful actor who passed away many years ago from AIDS, named Ray Sharkey, and he was playing a character who made stars out of a couple of young actors, and
Based on a real fellow. He was behind the careers of people like the Four Seasons.
Okay,
Yeah, real
and
guy.
yeah, okay. I didn't even know that, but
And
I
Taylor Hackford made the movie.
did Taylor Hackford direct that movie?
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
went in.
That was his first movie.
Well, I went in and I met him for that, and auditioned. I'm sure I was auditioning, and went in and auditioned for that. And it was Ray Sharkey who was like managing like young talent. So there were two guys in it, and if you look up the show, you'll see both of them. One of them.
What's it called?
Who?
What's it called?
The movie is called The Idolmaker.
Yeah, the movie.
IDOL.
Yeah.
Maker. Yeah.
Peter Gallagher.
Peter Gallagher was one of them.
And Paul Land.
Yeah, well, I don't know who Paul Land, but Peter Gallagher was the one I was thinking of for sure. But there were two of them. And so I went in and I auditioned for the role. And, I had read the script, and it was like these young singers. And I said, I've always been really known for like really not only not being able to sing, but like really like, dude, you can't sing a lick. You don't
carry a tune with a wheelbarrow.
Don't even hum around me, okay? It really throws me off. So I say to them, like, I can't, I just want you to know that, like, you're making a movie, and I can't sing. And Taylor Hackford says to me, "Don't worry about that. Let's just get through this." And so I do the reading, and my agents get back to me. It wasn't even Ed. This was way before Ed. They're very interested. I can't sing. They said, "Don't worry about it." I'm like, okay. So we wait another day or two, and they really want you for this, Michael. They really want you for this. They're going to send you to their musical genius. This guy can make anybody sound good. And I was in Hollywood. I think it was probably about the time that we were in the same building, Jim. And
I think it was. I know it was. It's about the time that movie was coming together.
Okay. Well,
because I was watching that movie come together from the agency perspective.
Okay.
At ICM, so I was kind of aware of how the pieces that were being put into place to get that movie greenlit.
Well, they needed to put in that Peter Gallagher piece, and so anyway,
they weren't looking at Ray Sharkey first either. He wasn't their first choice for that part.
Well, but he ended up Ray Sharkey ends up. I know the whole thing. Him dying is the most significant thing about him is that he was one of the first actors to die of AIDS, and or wasn't he a very good actor?
He was. He was in a couple of pretty good movies. He was one of the henchmen in Who Will Stop the Rain, the Nick Nolte movie.
Okay.
He was in a James Toback movie called Love and Money.
Okay.
That has a weird history to it. Yeah, he was kind of making a name for himself, and God, he was one of the first victims of AIDS, and he was gone by the mid 80s. So he never really got to establish himself much, but he was he was starting to make a name for himself. Landing the lead in a movie like The Idolmaker was definitely a real career move for him.
Do you know who Brad Davis is?
Yeah.
Well, Brad Davis is another wonderful, wonderful actor who also passed away.
Real big with Midnight Express.
Midnight Express. Who did the
Alan Parker.
Directed that movie.
It was a Peter Guber, Neil Bogart movie when they had a company called Casablanca Records and Film Works, and they just absolutely hit with that one.
Well, who did this? Who did the sound? Not the sound, but the music on that. Was that it's almost as iconic as Tubular Bells.
Oh, it is. It is, or as Chariots of Fire.
Yeah, yeah.
The music for that.
And you check it out, Caitlin. See who did the music for it if you get a chance.
Which one?
Midnight Express.
Caitlin's not paying attention.
I was looking at your Rotten Tomato scores for all your movies online.
All right. Let's not bring up. Let's.
Well, you're talking about IMDb, which they're not really. The scores for the IMDb ones are not really that accurate, except the TV shows are. So I was like, let's check out the Rotten Tomato scores for your movies and sort by the lowest. And I was just looking at a couple
how did Ike Mon Hong Hong? How did that one?
I don't see it on.
It's
here.
not on there, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The music for Midnight Express was Giorgio Moroder.
Oh.
He was doing a lot of scores at that time.
Oh, we were talking about the Scorsese, not Scorsese. It was the Spielberg movie that I did. Not Spielberg movie that I did. That was
which one was that? Is that in IMDb?
For some reason, that's not listed.
IMDb.
Yeah. What was I going to talk about? Friedkin. And something about Freak. Oh, do you know the music was done by Giorgio Moroni? Did you know that? Is that hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
You're talking about the music for
Rampage?
Rampage. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Which is I mean, like, and it is kind of an interesting score. I think that we got all the Billy Friedkin stuff out last week. So anyway, so I go in for this. I go into this musical geniuses. Like I can make anybody sound fucking wonderful, and I go in there, and it's like do re mi fa like that. Oh fucking! I won't. I won't even. All right, let me hear that. And okay, here, I'm going to sing something. And you follow that, like, Mary had a little lamb, like that kind, like, all right, try this and try that. Okay, wonderful, Michael. And he's just over there. He's got a scope. He's got this machine in front of him, and his hands are dancing all over it. Like, okay, all right. I'm dreaming of a bright crisp. And he's all right. Good, Michael. Good. Yeah, that's good. All right. So I was in there for like 45 minutes with him, like working all the dials and stuff like that. So I left feeling like, pretty fucking good. He was very upbeat and stuff. And later on in the day, I get a call from my agent. That's not going to work out.
They're looking elsewhere.
It's not going to work out, Michael. Anyway, that's the Idolmaker. And so anyway, Jim, I thought that one of the reasons that I wanted to do this is because I wanted to talk about movies with you and other people. And by the way, it's interesting to hear what other people think. And I was wondering how much knowledge people have that are listening to this about Straight Time. Now, Straight Time is a movie that Dustin Hoffman, whether he directed it or not, it's kind of hard to say. But I watched it again last night. I watched it
too.
You did too? Okay.
Uh-huh.
I watched it about a month ago.
You didn't direct it.
Well, I know, but
okay.
Yeah.
He did all the prep to direct that movie. He was the director of that movie up until the first day of shooting, at which point he turned to Ulu Grossbard and said, geez, I think I've maybe bit off more than I can chew trying to, star in this movie as well as direct it. And Grossbard was a theatrical director that Hoffman had worked with in New York years before. So
he hadn't done any films before that, Jim?
I think he'd done some TV, but he was mainly a theatrical director.
Oh, because it's a good looking movie as far as who the DP was.
But he was very smart. He did what first time directors should do, which is to back themselves up with the best talent available in your film, department, because he had Owen Roizman as his DP, and Roizman had shot a number of Sidney Lumet's movies. And
Okay.
he had Sam Osteen as an editor. Osteen, would had done movies like Chinatown, etc. So he was a highly regarded editor. So he had all the right, talent to back him up as a first-time director. So I think that's one reason why the movie has the look and appearance that it does, the handsome, although it's a, kind of gritty look
Well, it's a
at
dark.
LA.
It's very very gritty look at LA. They certainly don't go out of their way
They
to
don't
make
pretty
Los
it up,
Angeles look glamorous, and
it
it
ain't what
didn't. It didn't because, when they were shooting that movie, when they were shooting it, Jim and I were living off of.
Oh, it's a gritty movie. They shot it in our neighborhood. They did.
Well, you're right. Jim and I used to live on Orange Drive between Hollywood Boulevard and what, Jim? What's the one
The
about?
Magic Castle on Franklin.
On Franklin, yeah. And so
right behind the Chinese theater. I was watching The Godfather a couple of weeks ago, and the sequence where the Godfather sends Tom to LA to get that job for Johnny Fontaine.
yes.
And the first couple of shots of that Hollywood sequence are stock shots from the 40s. One is a plane landing at LAX. The other is taken from the top of the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, and it's kind of a pan shot of the Hollywood skyline. You see the Hollywood sign in the background. When that shot opens, if you look straight down at the bottom of the shot, that's our apartment building.
All right. Next time I watch
So
The Godfather, I'll make sure that I.
was taken. Yeah, I mean, you gotta.
Anybody who's listening, The Godfather, it's a good movie, but the thing they really want to watch for is our apartment down at the bottom of the.
That's why it's considered the best American movie ever made. It had our apartment in it for half a second.
Do you like Godfather better than Godfather Part 2, Jim? Or is that like even a question we should be asking?
There's a version, I think, called The Godfather Saga, of the two of them cut together with some extra footage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's really interesting. They go to after the wedding. They go to how at the beginning, Pacino says to Diane Keaton about Robert Duvall, I think he's going to be consigliere. Well, the family's consigliere is still alive, but he's really sick. So they all go to see him on his deathbed that night. Well, that scene's not in the movie, but it's in this Godfather saga. There are scenes of young Hyman Roth in the movie. There are a number of scenes.
Hyman Roth.
This is the business we have chosen. I didn't ask who did it. Yeah, that Hyman Roth. No, the scenes of him as a young man is quite good. I think, I like the first movie.
What's that guy's name? I want to say Stella Adler, but that's the other acting
Lee
coach.
Strasberg.
Oh, Lee Strasberg. Yeah, do your impression of him doing that. With him. Do it. Jim, do it. Do him.
I didn't ask who did it.
Keep going.
It was business, not personal. In that town of Vegas, there's not a monument, not a sign to that guy. No green. He was a kid. I just love that. That sequence.
Yeah. It was so good. They bring the birthday cake out. Go ahead. Cut off a small one for me.
Small one for me. Just a small one. Yeah.
Is that the movie that you learned the expression? I just want to just duck my beak.
Yeah.
Wet my beak.
That's what the mafia guy that De Niro kills as a young man keeps saying.
Oh yeah.
Just let me wet my beak. Let me wet my beak.
Right.
The fellow from the Black Hand, Finucci is his name.
Yeah.
The guy he kills during the big celebration.
I love that movie. I love.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them.
It's really what's better, Godfather or Godfather 2? They're both genius movies.
Yeah.
And to think that Coppola squeezed the conversation in between those two movies. Yeah.
And Jim, that version that you're talking about, I think I remember seeing it on like HBO like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
That's the one
I
where
think
they
you might have.
smash both movies together and then just play it in chronological order.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
it's fun.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to
It
sit
is.
for 6 hours, but
Well, and if you know both movies as well as I do, then you can tell when they're putting in new footage or putting in footage that was never in either of the two movies. So it's kind of fun to note those moments when they come along. And there are quite a few of them. I was surprised at how many there were. There's still a lot of material that he never used. So
I met him once for I believe the name of the movie was Peggy Sue Got Married.
oh yeah.
And I know he's a talented guy, but I think there was a little nepotism involved. Nick Cage ended up playing.
I'm gonna say, you mean the fact that Nick Cage got cast in that movie?
But what I've always said, I said that crazy story I have about Spielberg and meeting him, and Coppola. When I met Coppola, these guys were always. If you had a 10 o'clock meeting, you'd meet him at 10 o'clock. Paul Newman the same way. Oh, Paul Newman's, that one was just a great meeting. Well, it wasn't that great. I didn't play the role in it. Robbie Benson, I think, ended up playing
yeah.
I wish his wife wasn't, his wife was cast. His wife was casting with him, and she had to go out of the room when I went in. And I don't think that helped because I think that like always having her around was a smart thing. What the fuck are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about a couple of things.
You're talking about meeting Paul Newman.
Oh yeah, well,
and Francis Ford Coppola.
Francis Ford Coppola. What I was going to say was that a lot of times you'll go into meetings and. You have a 10:15 meeting or 10:30 meeting, and you go in there, and you get there 10 minutes early, and there's 8 other people sitting in front of you, and you're supposed to meet at 10:30, and they meet you at 12:30. That's what it was like when I was. I guess I should have hung in, but when Michael Mann directed Heat, I went in there, and there were about 10 fucking guys waiting around. One of them was Charlie Sheen, and just all fucking waiting. I think it was that movie. It might not have been that movie. It was Michael Mann for sure. And everybody's just waiting around. And I was like, fuck this shit, man. And so I left, and that's why Val Kilmer got that. But Coppola was not that way. Coppola just, went in, met him, talked to him for 15 or 20 minutes. And, but I wasn't at that time, I probably wasn't smart enough to go, hey, by the way, The Godfather was a pretty good movie, it's just not that easy to have all that knowledge that we can now walk into offices, because I always make sure that I research anybody that I'm going to meet for any reason. And
he also had written the screenplay for Patton.
Wow, yeah. George C. Scott. China Rose was the name of the thing that I did with George C. Scott and Ollie McGraw. And boy, they were interesting and
a pair to draw to. Huh?
Yeah. And fun to be around, really, really fun to be around. And we were in Hong Kong, that was back in the 70s, and Hong Kong was, completely different. They still had all those little boats, rickshaws or whatever, not a rickshaws on land. Whatever you call the little boats.
Junks. I think they weren't called junks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That was an interesting, very interesting time in my life, and meeting George and hanging out with George. And I've said before that George and I got close. He liked me, and of course I was. He's probably the only actor I have ever been around. And again, I didn't work with De Niro. I didn't work with Pacino. I didn't work with Jack Nicholson. I didn't work with Warren Beatty. I didn't work with Dustin Hoffman. What? Dustin Hoffman, we're going to...
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
In our circular manner, our elliptical manner. We're zeroing in on it.
Yeah, George C. Scott probably was the most intimidating person, and not because he ever looked at me sideways, but there just seemed to be a
gravitas about the guy.
Yeah, well, that's a good word. I was going to say aura. Is that what can you use
yeah,
that word too?
It's
like
sure,
you kind of like and I was into photography at the time and loved taking pictures. And I remember asking him if I could take a picture of him. And he said, yeah, of course. And so the reason why I did that is that he was my mother's favorite actor. And so anyway, I took a picture of her, and that picture signed to Marcy, which is my mother's name, who's still alive and who's 94, has got that picture up on her.
Really?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, of George C. Scott. I took. I took the picture and he signed it, and my mom's got it up in her house. Right. I'm going to see my mom tomorrow. I'm going back to Lake Havasu to get some dental work done. So like when I laugh on this show, you don't see all the fucking missing teeth that I have in the back of my mouth. Go ahead.
Scott wanted you to play young George Patton in a movie he was contemplating, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did this movie, China Rose, and the reason he said he was doing it was there was a guy that did a lot of these kind of movies. His name was
Robert Halmy.
Correct.
I believe.
That's exactly right, Robert Halmy. Hey, Jim, when I actually can come up with a name, let me actually. I actually was going to wait until I go.
You had that one. Okay, that's all right. I was playing the averages, you know.
Wait until I go. Yeah, give me two of those at least, and then jump in with who I'm talking.
I need to wait
and then jump in to finish my sentence.
Yeah, Jim. Who is that? Who am I thinking of, Jim?
Well, he said he was doing China Rose with Robert Halmy, because Robert Halmy was going to do a sequel to Patton, and that's very interesting. And then at one point on the set, he asked me if I would be interested or in playing. I'm putting my little quote fingers up. The young Patton in the movie, and I was like, "Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely, would love that. Yeah, no, that's fantastic." And somebody can look up like when I made that. But that was
83.
83. Okay, so that was right around the time that the Terminator was happening, and I think Deadly Intentions.
Yeah,
and
I think probably.
If there were ever a time that I really, Deadly Intentions is a television movie that I did. It was a two-parter, and it was based on a real life character. And who went to jail for
a real life true crime thing.
Yeah, who went to jail for intending to kill his wife, and I played him in it, and I got to play crazy for the first time in my life.
I remember reading that book before the movie ever came about. Yeah. And you were cast, and then it turns out, you were cast in it. But I remember reading that book.
Did you know, Jim, that Robert Hayes was set to play that role?
Oh, is that right?
And Ed L'Amato, my agent, of course, was Robert Hayes pulled out in the last, whatever.
Right.
And Ed called me up and said, "Robert's pulled out of this thing. Do you want to do it?" And I was, I was like, yes, but it seemed like a lot because the guy was like out of his effing mind with the control issues and
real diabolical.
Oh,
real
really? Incredibly
he
diabolical.
was a doctor, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a doctor.
Real diabolical.
Yeah, and he was a very,
freak.
very successful doctor, very successful guy. Everybody liked him, and then he'd go home and he'd just like terrorize his wife, just like completely terrorize her and her friends. And anyway, she ends up trying to get away from him, and then he dresses up in this ridiculous outfit and flies off to. I think it takes place in part of it takes place in Tucson after she leaves him.
Yeah,
but that was really the first time, and we have a baby together, and that was really one of the first times I got to really play like a fucking psychopath, real psychopath. And I remember doing the movie, and you know who directed that, Jim? Wait, do you know? And then I'm going to tell you, so you don't have, like, this is not like I don't know. Do you know who directed it? Say yes or no.
No.
Noel Black.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and do you know who Noel Black, you know what Noel Black directed, right?
I think he directed that Tuesday Weld movie.
Yeah, was it Tuesday Weld or was it
Pretty Poison, wasn't it?
Pretty Poison. He directed Pretty Poison, right, with Anthony Hopkins, who, by the way,
Anthony Perkins, not Hopkins. Perkins.
Anthony Perkins.
Yeah, Psycho Anthony. Yes.
Yeah. Who, by the way, I used to know Anthony Perkins a little bit too, because we used to live in the same neighborhood, and he would always be out walking, and I was always out running. And cool. Again, I think that he was, he was gay, so he liked to have me. he liked talking to me, and he was an interesting guy, tall guy, and
very tall. Yeah,
that's a fun movie. But anyway, so Noel Black directed that, and I can remember playing the character, and at one point, and then at certain times in the show. And if you like me at all, and you've never seen it, you really should check it out, because it really is a young fucking my first psychopath. This is before the guy from The Abyss. Well,
this was after The Fan.
Well, yeah, and that's true. That's true.
But it was a more elaborate.
That's probably why
drawn out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably why I got the job. I wish I could have yelled at fucking Lauren Bacall like I did this lady, but it was a different circumstance where I'm terrorizing my wife, and I remember like screaming at her and yelling at her, and doing a few takes and rehearsals or whatever. And I remember the producers saying to me, Michael, man, that's fucking hardcore. Man, you're coming down like really fucking heavy on her. Are you sure? We're not sure if he really should be so loud, or if he really should be so angry, or if he really should be. And I can remember what I said to them at the time. I said, John McEnroe is louder on the tennis court, screaming at the guy calling an
umpire,
the umpire, yeah. And I think they looked at me and
went, you
serious? Okay, yeah, all right, Michael, go ahead, keep screaming at her, So anyway, now you can step in, Jim. What the fuck were we talking about?
Well, I think we're
pick a subject.
We're looking for a way to start talking about straight time.
Straight time.
Circling around it.
Right. Well,
it's interesting. You should have mentioned Heat, because Michael Mann did an uncredited rewrite on Straight Time.
I just read that on the Wikipedia page, and it seems like there were 2 or 3 or 4 people working on
quite
that.
A few.
Yeah.
It's got quite an amazing pedigree to it. If you see the screenwriting credits include Alvin Sargent, who was about to receive Oscars for his screenplays for Julia and Ordinary People. Real high-minded.
He wrote Ordinary People, right?
Well, he wrote the screenplay for it. And then he wrote a movie called Bobby Deerfield. an Al Pacino movie.
You want to hear my
about a race
you
car
want to hear
driver?
my Ordinary People story? You
Okay,
know?
sure.
So
I should say no to that. No, I don't want to hear it. Nah, Robert Redford movie. Fuck no. Who cares?
so I'm doing I'm up in Canada doing Hog Wild. Not exactly the same, but I'm up in Canada doing Hog Wild, and I had that manager. Now you can step in. What was that guy's name? Roger?
Your manager?
Yeah.
Ron Singer.
Ron Singer, yeah. And Ron gave me a call, and I was up in one of those fucking cities up there in Canada. Montreal. It was Montreal. It was Montreal because they had the whole French thing going on.
Yeah.
And he said, they're casting this movie, and Robert Redford's directing it, and it's called Ordinary People, and they want to see you for it. And I'm like, okay, well, I got a day off tomorrow and a day off the next, let's go. I'll go. So I got on a plane and I flew from Montreal to New York. And I was supposed to go from New York and get on a plane and go somewhere else. And in New York, Ron Singer called me up and said, "Oh, Michael, they just cast it." And I was like, okay, all right, well. Okay, all right, whatever. I was disappointed, but I didn't know I was going to win all these Academy Awards, and then Timothy Hutton ended up playing that role, and I've always felt this is a little bit, probably, a little bit touchy feel. This is a little bit. Hopefully, it's appropriate, but he. Got cast for that role. I think it was about his father was an actor. Timothy Hutton.
Well, a well-known one named Jim Hutton.
Jim Hutton, right. And his father had died about 4 months or 5 months before Ordinary People started shooting. Something like that. It was very close. So he was in a state of mind at that point, with his father just passing away, that he was, I think, just already there when it came to playing this kid who was sort of mournful and I don't know the movie that well, but he ended up winning an Academy Award for it, and which was wonderful that he won the Academy Award for it. But I'm not sure he has ever been as good as he was in that movie. And remind me to talk about Falcon and the Snowman first, and then I'll go back to I saw James Remar recently, and I was talking to a good friend of mine about Remar. And we're talking about the fact that, of course, he got busted over in England, and I replaced him on Aliens. And Remar had done Cotton Club. He'd done 48 Hours. He'd done Cruising for Friedkin. And, he was good. He had done
a Walter Hill movie, a couple of Walter Hill movies, like Streets of Fire, I think.
Was he in Streets of Fire too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed out on that one. I went in to meet Walter Hill. That was the first time that Walter Hill didn't cast me. There were like 5 times, including Geronimo, including the one he did with Paxton. That I thought I was gonna get the role, and went in and was one of the last few people, and that was. Actually, an actor by the name of Michael Pare ended up playing that role, and I'm not sure that movie. Did you ever see that movie, Jim? Streets of Fire?
Yeah, it just doesn't register. Rick Moranis is in it. They shot it like in the Universal backlot, and they put a huge tent over this outdoor set so they could shoot it like all at night. These exteriors all at night. And it's one of those movies that's more remarkable for how they shot it than for anything that's actually on film when you watch it. It reminds me a lot of Warriors. It's got kind of a cartoonish quality about it.
Yeah.
And some good music. and that's about
Well,
that's about it.
Remar, of course, was in.
Remar wasn't in Streets of Fire.
Okay,
Is that what you're talking about? No.
Jim said that, not me. Jim, God damn it!
Yeah,
listen,
okay.
get your shit together.
I think I was thinking of Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe is in it.
Yeah, because he looks like James Remar.
Nobody looks like Dafoe. Come on, man. Come on. Nobody looks like Willem Dafoe. Well, anyway, so yeah, I went in and auditioned for that, and I thought that was a role that I think sometimes as actors, we take any piece of information that sounds like, okay, you've got the role, or yes, you have, and you turned it into, I have the role, I have the role, I have the role. No, Michael, you don't have the role, and that I think has happened to me. It happened to me on American Me. I thought I was playing that role. I thought I was playing that role, and I wasn't. It turned out I wasn't. And I've always looked back at Hill and what's the guy who directed American Me? The actor.
Almost.
Edward
James Olmos.
Edward James Olmos. And I always look back like, yeah, motherfuckers, you told me I was, going to fucking play this role, and you didn't give me the role after you told me that you were going to cast me in it. And, looking back on it, they probably didn't say, hey, Michael, you have the role.
Right.
And somehow I probably talked myself into believing that they'd said something close to that, and therefore I ended up, I'll tell you another one that I went up for that I was really fucking pissed about. Caitlin's over here. I said, fucking, could you stay on one fucking train of thought, for God's sakes? You didn't know your dad was ADHD? Yeah. Geronimo. All right. So I go in, and I meet him for same director, correct? Am I wrong?
Yep,
Yeah,
Walter Hill.
Walter Hill, right? And I loved Walter Hill. I absolutely loved him, and I wanted to work with him. And so I get him and Dick Donner mixed up sometimes. But I met Dick Donner for some other things. But and he never cast me either. But Walter, So I go in, there was something in between that I think that I'd met him for that I thought I was going to get and didn't get. So I go in to meet him for Geronimo, and I have this great meeting, and he says to me, yeah, wonderful, Michael. Well, this all looks very good. I want you to meet the star of the movie. And I said, sure. Well, who is that? And it was a guy by the name of Jason Patrick, I believe. Is that correct, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I went out. This also happened to me with Cher, but I went out with, I went to lunch with him, thinking, okay, this is sort of an obligatory, oh, hey, I'm having lunch, and I didn't know who the fuck he was. I had no idea who he was. He was just breaking at that point. And so I have lunch with him, and then, a day later, it's like, it's not going to work out, Michael. And ever since then, I've fucking hated that guy. Fucking hated him. Fucking hate. Now, as it turned out, they ended up getting Robert Duvall to play that role. So,
Well, Jason Patrick is the son of Jonathan Miller, the guy who plays the priest.
I know.
In Exorcist.
I know.
He was in Speed 2. The sequel.
Yeah,
to
well, there
Speed.
you go. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why he was, now he's bald and, he doesn't have that same thing. Well, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just he was a very hot, young leading man.
Yeah, he was.
Who looked at me and said, well, I don't think so, Michael. But, like I said, so Geronimo was another one. And then Walter Hill directed a movie with Bill Paxton, and it all took place inside.
Oh, yeah. And Ice Cube, I think, is in that, too.
Yeah. And that movie also was like the fourth.
Trespass. I think it's called Trespass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he cast an actor in that who wasn't even as famous as me. And he, I don't know, maybe he heard heard about the way that I treated Louis Teague. I think that's why Paxton never cast me in any of his movies. He's seen me rage before. Like, you know what? I'm directing. You know, Michael, I like to keep you.
This is
I'm going to go with Elliot
Coste,
whatever that guy's name is. That wonderful actor.
Trespass was written by Zemeckis and Gale.
Was it?
Yes.
It didn't really seem to be a very substantial movie. It's like
two
guys.
It takes place in an abandoned building.
Yeah,
a couple of firefighters and a couple
you know
of
your
gangbangers
career is starting to shrink. That when you go from Streets of Fire, and huge production to like, okay, there's a building, go shoot your movie in it. There's a building, just anything inside of that building you want to shoot, go ahead and shoot it. So anyway, Dustin Hoffman made a movie called Straight Time, and Jim and I lived on Hollywood Boulevard, and in between Hollywood Boulevard and Franklin. And what was the street that was when we walked down to Hollywood Boulevard and we took a right? What was the big street that went down, Jim?
The next big one was La Brea.
La Brea. Okay, so we were right there at La Brea. And one night I'm walking around, and I walk out my front door and I turn right. I'm, going into Hollywood. I'm going to my acting class. Vince's class used to kind of be over there. And right there on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and La Brea, there was a big production going on. And I was young. Now, and just for anybody who's like interested in like walking around a crew that sets something up, basically walk right through them. You can kind of hang out and watch. Somebody kind of pushes you away. It's probably some AD. You can tell him go fuck himself. Wait for a police officer. No, I'm standing here. Okay, I'm standing here. I'm behind the camera.
I'm standing here.
I'm standing here.
I'm standing here. I'm standing here.
But
I'm walking here.
Yeah, and when I watched the movie last night, I looked for it and I couldn't find it. Now whether
I looked for it too. I didn't see anything that was in our neighborhood.
Well,
I saw some familiar places, but nothing that was in our neighborhood. So
I think that I was walking down. I turned left on La Brea, and right there on the right-hand side, there was a production going on, and I wasn't even that familiar with seeing like them shoot, people shooting and stuff. What year was it, Jim? Can you
it would have been around 77.
78.
78. Okay, so it came out in
77 is when you would have seen them shooting it.
Right. All right. So that would have made me how old? Come on, Jim. Do the math, man.
21.
Thank you.
21.
You went to Harvard. No, I keep saying Harvard. I mean Stanford. That place where you just pay.
We still have our tax
Stanford
status,
the place where if you
now.
pay enough money and get your daughters to, if you're an actress and you pay enough money that they
you can get them.
You get a scholarship to the rowing team.
There were scholarships for the sailing team.
The sailing team, right?
They were getting sailing scholarships.
Yeah. So anyway, I stayed and watched that for a while, and I saw Dustin Hoffman, and I remember also. Her car, Jim, in the movie is like a Mustang, or it's like this nice little that car was there. I remember Dustin Hoffman, and I remember that car. Now, me at the time, I didn't know I could probably just make my way over to Dustin Hoffman and go like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" But I was a kid and kind of a little intimidated, but I remember seeing that, and then I walked on, and then Jim, you said we saw that movie together, correct?
Yeah, it came out about less than a year later, and we saw it at the Cinerama Dome together. It had been a pet project of Hoffman's. He bought the book and developed it himself.
Ed
And
Bunker? Ed Bunker's?
he bought Ed Bunker's book. It was based on a book called No Beast So Fierce by a fellow named Ed Bunker, who was himself a crook and had spent considerable time in prison. He wrote a couple of books about that experience and became a screenwriter. And Ed Bunker was at one point the youngest guy ever sent to San Quentin, and he had a cell next to a famous fellow named Carol.
That looks good on your resume.
Yeah, exactly. And he kind of became
the go-to
a pretty good writer and sort of enamored of Hollywood. He palled around with a lot of Hollywood folks. He has a small part in Straight Time. You know,
who does he play? Because I just watched it last night. Who is he in Straight Time?
When he goes to that bar where they're playing pool and he meets a guy who helps him set up a job, tells him about a job, a poker game he can go rob.
Yes.
That's Ed Bunker.
Oh.
Yeah. And
the guy who takes him in back and gives him the gun?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No. That's a different guy. That's a comic named Sandy Barron. Ed Bunker is the guy who tells him, "Hey, I know this poker game. You can pull 10-20 out of the poker game. I'll give you the details for it."
Right.
The John Voight character in Heat is based on Ed Bunker. And in fact, Ed Bunker wrote one of John Voight's movies, Runaway Train, and
he did. He wrote Runaway Train.
He wrote one.
We had Eric Roberts on Runaway Train. Great, I loved it.
Quentin Tarantino cast him in Reservoir Dogs. He's one of the jewel thieves who gets killed in the robbery, but we only see him in the opening sequence in the restaurant in Reservoir Dogs. Ed Bunker was one of those, Mr. Blue, in that movie. So he wrote a book called Animal Factory. He's in that movie.
Yeah,
that movie starred
we've had on a guest who was in that. Eddie Furlong was in that. Yeah. And the other guy you said who was in Streets of Fire.
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
In the movie, you know, Roger Ebert, the famous critic, had what he called the Stanton Walsh rule. Any movie that had either Harry Dean Stanton or M. Emmett Walsh in the supporting part couldn't be all bad.
Well,
and Straight Time has them both.
Yeah, it has them both, and they're both phenomenal. And it's interesting because I went back to read a couple of reviews last night on it, and it's interesting that like some reviewers. Well, first of all, let me just say about the movie. The reason that I kind of wanted to talk about it is being an actor. The characterization that Dustin, you know, when you think of Dustin Hoffman, nobody ever thinks of him as a tough guy or a mean guy or a mean-spirited guy or anything other than like Tootsie and, you know, like Kramer versus Kramer and Rain Man and all that kind of stuff. This guy looked like the real deal to me here. I don't know where this was, what he had done right before this or what he'd done right afterwards. I have never seen, to this day, I have never seen a criminal portrayed as, in my mind, I don't know, I don't hang around with criminals except for the ones who come on the podcast, but I have never seen a criminal portrayed so realistically, what I would think was so realistically as Dustin Hoffman is in that movie. I've never seen Dustin Hoffman, you know, when you think of Papillon or you think of all of his movies, you know, he looks, it is.
He can turn cold in a second.
In that movie.
That's what I'm talking about. In that character he plays, you know, James Ellroy, the great L.A. crime novelist who wrote L.A. Confidential, said that this book, No Beast So Fierce, Ed Bunker's book, was the best portrait of the criminal underworld of L.A. that he's ever read. And you get that from Hoffman's character, from the way he operates, from the way he can just flip the least little, and he is oppositional from the start. I noticed in that first scene with M. Emmett Walsh, when Walsh says, "Hey, you just got out of the joint. You're supposed to check into the halfway house." "Well, I just wanted to walk around a little bit, you know, just have like one night." He's violating the rules from the start, and he's pretty good at weaseling his way around, but it doesn't take much to set him off at all.
My phone is going off, and Dashiell, my 10-year-old son, put on my ringtone now is.
Yeah, stop playing that. That's gonna.
Yeah. I'm not supposed to play that because that's off
YouTube
of
doesn't
another
like that.
show.
Yeah.
Basically, my ringtone is Ricky Gervais in a like a pub or a bar, and he stumbles across David Bowie, and he's got some show on, and and anybody who wants a really, really good laugh. I mean, Ricky Gervais, oh God, what a talent! What a talented, funny, fun guy. But this is a
if you want a great video too, I not only do I go back and rewatch all of his Golden Globe things, which are great.
They're pretty good.
They're
Those
so
are pretty
good. They're so good.
Yeah.
But also just going back and watching all the bloopers from all of his different shows.
Yes.
From
Where he
Extras,
can't
from
stop
the
laughing.
He can't stop laughing.
Yes.
It is so funny. Just go watch some of those. It's great.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah. Well, David. It turns out David Bowie, or Bowie is the way I've always said it, was always been an idol of his. And so he called David Bowie and he said, would you want to do the show? It wasn't The Office, it was Extras. One thing about The Office that people might not be aware of, but I've got a connection to. And my connection is that when I was doing Aliens, before I took Bill Paxton in to London for all the debauchery that happened, he was living, and everybody else was living, another one of those, in a town called Slough. And the town is as ugly and as smelly as that sounds, Slough. And my...
Turn that off.
Oh, okay, I can't. All right. One of those gay pictures of me in that movie just popped up again. All right. Fucking Dashiell's over. I mean, Caitlin's over here fucking worried about getting sued. Turn it off. Anyway, so that's where The Office takes place. That's where the original Office takes place. And the original Office with Ricky Gervais. I mean, anybody in America, mostly, they think about the Steve Carell thing, and it's, of course, it's, I ran into Stephen Carell over in Studio City once, and I saw him, and I recognized him from a commercial that he had done. That was like a big commercial, and I said to him, "Hey, hi, I know you. You're the guy who does this commercial." And he kind of looked at me like, "Yeah, I am." I was like, "Oh man, that commercial, man, that commercial," And he kind of looked at me sideways a little bit. He seemed like a nice enough guy, but he said to me, "Well, have you ever seen The Daily Show?" I was like, "I don't really watch The Daily Show." And he goes, "Well, check that out. I'm much more prominent on The Daily Show." And I go, "Oh, okay, I'll do that. What are you doing now?" And he said, I'm going to be doing The Office. And I said, "Oh my God, I was over in England when The Office came out. And I remember distinctly sitting in England in a hotel room by myself, flipping through channels, and it's over there. It's like either soccer or what they call football or darts or a game show. It's just like nothing's ever on TV over there. And all of a sudden, this thing came on. I was like, God, this is really fucking interesting and fun. I went to the set the next day and I started asking him, "What is this thing I was watching? The Office. And even some people on this set weren't even that aware of it at the time. This is Ricky Gervais, of course, over in England. And so I'd like to say that I was one of the first people. I was there, Ricky, before I recognized your talent right away, before even the English community. But what the fuck are we talking about?
Stephen Carell.
Steve
Carell.
So Steve Carell. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm talking to him, and I said, so what are you doing now? And he said, well, I'm getting ready to do The Office. And I said, oh my God, you know what I just said. And he said, what are you doing? He said, like, well, you know, I'm going over to Hawaii. And I believe this is the conversation. I'm going over to Hawaii, do a television series called Hawaii, which I think I was the leading character on that show. And
there's actually a kind of funny story about that show. I think
there's a very
funny stories about that show.
I got a story about that one, but go ahead and finish your Office story.
Okay, well, but basically what I said to him was, well, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, man. You have got some big footsteps to fucking what's that expression, Jim? You know, you can't. That is like, I was kind of basically saying to him, you got no fucking chance, dude, because you know what Ricky Gervais did with that over there. You can't do that. I don't. You know, you get like, that's kind of the vibe. I would never say that, but I was kind of like, well, good luck with that. You know, I'm gonna go over to Hawaii and make Hawaii. So I go over to here's something else too. After I got offered Hawaii, I was like the lead in Hawaii. They have something in New York called the Upfronts, which is where all the actors go to New York City and they all hang around the same area and they decide what night your show's going to be on and at what time it's going to be on. It's called the Upfronts. That's where I met Donald Trump, which isn't, I don't really have much to say about that because it was not that interesting. So I went to the Upfronts and I can remember Lost being like one of the other shows, and I can remember derisively talking to somebody about Lost as being a fucking new version of Gilligan's Island. I was all full of myself, right? So we start shooting Lost and Hawaii. Thank you. We start shooting Hawaii.
Hawaii Blue, I think was the.
No, it's just Hawaii.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. New York Blue, but we covered that with David Caruso the other day. But I think it's called Hawaii. You could double check it. But
Blue Hawaii is an Elvis Presley movie, but that's
there you go. That's probably where Kalen got confused. He loves those old Elvis movies. So anyway, we're shooting Hawaii. We're over there for like a week. We're shooting the pilot to Hawaii. It's not going like all that well or whatever. Then we go to the North Shore. If anybody knows Hawaii and they know the North Shore, that's where like the waves are, you know.
The surfing mecca of the world, practically.
Yeah. So we're on the North Shore and we're about 3 weeks into shooting. And we know now that we're up against Lost. And we know, I think we had already shot the pilot and maybe we were shooting the first episode, or our pilot had already run, or, you know, it was already on TV or whatever. But it was like, I know exactly where I was when people said like Lost is on, like the pilot for Lost was on. And I knew what we had just shot. And so, you know, we all run in, gather around the TV praying that this fucking show is fucking horrible. And the opening sequence of that movie is some fucking plane crash. It's like a 15-minute, like, there was more production value in that first 10 minutes in that movie than our entire first month of shooting. I don't know who was behind that, who was responsible for that show, but man, oh man, we all just looked at each other, and sure enough, and that show was on for 8 or 10 years, or it was on for a long time. And that was J.J. Abrams. Oh, J.J. Abrams.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Anybody who sees the opening of that, you can just imagine, like, my heart, what is something sunk into something. And I was just well, might as well enjoy what's left of what we've, how long we're going to be here, because I don't think that we're going to be able to compete with that. And
I think you were also going up against Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Well,
if you're going up against Lost, it doesn't even matter.
Exactly. You're going up against, no, it was Lost for one thing, and it might have been that too, Jim, but I don't know what year that was, but that was... Trump had to have been there because of that
04.
Apprentice, yeah. I'm sure the upfronts are basically when the networks kind of present their upcoming season to advertisers.
But when did Trump do Who Wants to Be
Apprentice?
It was called The Apprentice, right? That's right.
Yeah.
When was that?
I'm not sure.
Was 04. This was the first release was 04. Yeah.
Apprentice?
Yeah, they were both 04.
Okay, so that's why I met him, and he was actually like really, really nice to me, and knew who I was.
He invited you to Mar-a-Lago, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He invited me down there, but he didn't say he was going to pay for anything. He just, come on down, man. I'm going to stay in my hotel, and it was great dinners and stuff like that. And I got a weird. I had a weird. It was a weird vibe for me. I had been around New York City enough to know him very well because of like going back to the Fan and stuff like that. He was always in the
news,
in the newspapers, in the rags, really. And he got married when he left his first wife for. Anyway, let's not talk about him. So what are we talking about? Oh, Dustin Hoffman.
What we haven't talked about is Straight Time all that much. We've taken the roundabout circular way to talk about Straight Time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what I want to say about Straight Time is I look at that, and of course I haven't seen, Papillon in years. Of course I haven't seen The Graduate in years. But to me, this is by far Dustin Hoffman's greatest performance. And if somebody's listening to this and they've never seen Straight Time, they should watch it because, as Jim said, Harry Dean Stanton is in it, and Harry Dean Stanton can do no wrong and always can do no wrong. Is it Emmett Walsh? Is that
M? Michael was his first name.
Okay,
but he was in a number of movies.
Oh, and
Coen Brothers movies.
Yeah,
he played the sleazy private eye in their first movie, Blood Simple.
Yeah,
and you'd recognize him, from any number of movies and TV shows over the years.
And he is so good.
Smarmy, dick-headed parole officer.
Loud, heavy.
Abusive. Just throwing his weight around.
In kind of a jokey kind of, and he's like excellent in it. And then Gary Busey is in it. And Gary Busey is fabulous in the role that he plays. And actually, he's married. Gary Busey's character is married, and he's married to a very young, very thin, very beautiful Kathy Baker, who's like
Bates.
Bates. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so they have a child, and their child is Jake Busey.
Gary's son.
Gary's son is like 5 or 6 or 8 or something like that. And Gary and he went on to have a decent, I think, a pretty decent movie career.
For sure.
He did a show with the same producers who did Hawaii, and he tells a funny story about his dad working on that. He told the producers of the show, don't hire him, don't fucking hire him. You don't want to hire him. Nah, we'll be okay. Now, don't hire. Well, they hired him.
A friend of mine who was a second AD worked with him and said everybody used to call him Gary Busey.
Gary Busey, yeah. Well, I'll tell you something about Gary Busey. And early in his career, he was so. Listen, I can watch the Buddy Holly story.
You and I saw that movie together.
Did we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it since that time. I've seen it 20 times. I absolutely adore that movie, which was kind of a cheap, it had Don Stroud was the drummer.
Charlie Martin Smith.
That was the threesome. But they were able to use the music. And I just thought that he was... I never better, and he got nominated for an Academy.
He sold Buddy Holly,
and he sung Buddy Holly.
Oh, he did. He was just.
Yeah, and these days, I guess so many actors sing, and I guess the guy who just did
Bob
Dylan,
he did his own singing.
Val
did his own singing for playing Jim Morrison.
Yeah, I never can quite figure out if he did or if he didn't, but I know that he. Yeah, yes, okay. There's that.
Done it. Yeah,
I even heard that only the most beautiful actress who I've worked with. I even heard I don't believe any of this. I don't believe it at all, but I believe that Angelina Jolie did some of the singing when she played like this opera queen.
Really? Maria Callas?
Yeah. Remember you called me about 2 years ago, Jim, and you said, Adam, William Morris Agency, they're looking for something for Angelina. Do you have any ideas? And so you asked me about it, and I said, let me think about that, Jim. And I never got back to you, but I guess that was the character that the William Morris Agency couldn't come up with, and you couldn't come up with, and Adam couldn't come up with, and that's who she ended up playing. But I thought I read someplace but she couldn't have done her own opera singing, could she? I got Kalen's fingers just moved from his Red Bull can to the computer, so so that might mean we'll get some interesting. But I've never seen. I'm going to go back to the movie. I just want to say what I want to say about Dustin Hoffman. He's a brilliant actor, and I would love to hear like his story on this. And I heard there were lawsuits that went on behind that movie. The fact that nobody's ever heard of it, and a lot of times I'll talk to people, like I just said to Kalen when I sat down. I said, "Are you familiar with this movie?" No. I just said to another friend of mine who's knows every movie almost and everybody, and he didn't know about it. And nobody knows about the movie. Well, when I say nobody, obviously film aficionados do, but everybody is so good, and it's so well done. And was it Teresa Russell? Is that
Russell? Yes.
She has a way of playing. You just don't know what's going on inside of that. Absolutely gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. She's got a beautiful smile. She's very sexy. She's in this movie. She's kind of like, she knows she's playing with fire, but she doesn't.
She's good at that too. She's really good at playing that role. Because she knows what she's getting into. You know,
she does.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to use this hour and 20 minutes to recommend that movie to anybody who hasn't seen it. And I didn't spend enough time talking about it because Jim kept bringing up other fucking
other
stuff.
topics, yeah.
Other topics.
I wanted to talk about Ricky Gervais and Slow, Slow or whatever it is. Yeah.
Slow. Well,
how awful Slow is.
Listen. I'm gonna, I had a guest on, and I told my Slough was part of the story of when I dragged Bill Paxton to London, and where we came, about as close as you can possibly get. Getting caught with drugs a week after I had come in.
James Remar got
a week after I came in to replace James Remar for having drugs. Oh, Bill and I came so effing close, so close. But,
if you want to hear that story, it's on the Ronnie Jean Blevins episode. At the end of that episode, it's at the end of that episode.
Yeah.
You'll find it there.
Is it?
Yeah.
And just so you know, Angelina, the movie is called Maria.
Okay.
And so does she actually sing? It turns out the answer is yes, kind of.
Yeah.
With like a lot of
that was like me and the Idolmaker.
We could.
So the director told IndieWire, sometimes you hear 1% of Angelina's voice, sometimes it's 5%, sometimes it's 40%, but they blended her voice with Callis's voice, so that's how.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, they were able to can create a voice. They could create Val Kilmer's voice 5 years ago. So I'm sure these days they can take her voice and have her these days, probably with AI and all this sort of stuff, they could just take somebody's voice and go, okay, well, now you're an opera singer, So I did a movie with her when she was 19, and boy, was she fucking wild, man. She was fucking wild. Wow. This is before she cleaned up and did, what was the big franchise she did over in Thailand?
Tomb Raider? Was it?
Yeah. This was back when she was using
Laura Croft,
using drugs and stuff like that. But and absolutely stunningly beautiful.
She hadn't married Billy Bob.
No. She was still married. She was still married at that time to her first husband. Anyway, listen, we're at about an hour and 21 minutes, and I think it's time to go. I don't want this to run in too much longer. So unless Jim, you have any other
things?
We probably should have stopped this.
No,
before that sentence where I said, Jim, if you have any other observations is probably the word I was looking for. Stories.
I kept diverting us.
There's like 30 words I could have used. I couldn't think of any of them. Anything else that you want to say about Straight Time? Talk to me a little bit about it. Give me 3 minutes on Straight Time.
Well, I'm really glad that we got to talk about it because, like you said, it's a riveting movie when you see it. We should maybe say briefly it's about Dustin Hoffman just getting out of prison and trying to go straight, but he doesn't try very hard and he doesn't try very long, and things kind of go awry after that. But it's a riveting movie, some terrific performances, and like you said, almost nobody's aware of the movie, and it just has talent at every corner. Even the score is pretty good. I was kind of paying attention to the score. It's a very, very 80s kind of score, although it was made in 78, but it was done by David Shire, who was Talia Shire's husband, and was responsible for a ton of movie and TV work at that time. So well worth watching for anybody who can who is interested.
I work with Talia too, but we'll leave that for the next podcast.
Okay.
All right. All right. So thank you. And for anybody who's listening, I've been promising this for you guys. It's been like four weeks or whatever. But I've been promising that we're going to get some new guests in here, and I'm still promising that we're going to get some people in here, and we'll try to do that the next one that I do. So,
well, I told this before too, and that, we are definitely trying to get guests. You've been traveling and doing cons, and it's been a big thing. But even when we do get a guest, then we're planning on having that be just an additional episode that week. So we're still going to do these, talking about straight time, and have you getting diverted onto 40 different stories. But but when we do get a guest in here, then it'll just be an extra episode that week. So you still get this thing that we're doing plus another one. So there you go.
How can you go wrong with that, Jim?
We can't. I think we have in mind doing some maybe multiple guests, shows with a couple of guests on.
What?
Yeah.
What do you like? Who?
Well, we were talking about a couple of people to talk about Tombstone.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't remember that conversation. We probably had that at our house one night after I had my green tea, which is what I always drink before I go to bed. My little glass of green tea. That's how I swallowed the lollipop. Anyway, we'll tell that story the next time.
Check out the Doug Stanhope episode for that one.
Go to the Doug Stanhope one for that one, All right, I talked to Doug, too, and we need to talk to you about Doug and him wanting to come back on. Okay, great, All right. Bye. Bye. See you, Jim. Thanks. Bye. I'll call you in about an hour, and we'll spend another 3 or 4 hours.
And then we'll have a great conversation. We'll be on top of our game then.
Yeah, and for anybody who's listening, check out those 2 fucking 8.89 movies that I made. Oh, I never got the... you know what? Let me just tell this very quickly, because this is the last thing I'm going to say. It's a good story, because when I was doing the Martyrdom of Saint Sebastian, and I was filming in these Roman ruins in where was I, Jim?
Turkey.
In
Turkey, thank you. Turkey. I was in Turkey, and I was
on the coast of Turkey.
On the coast of Turkey, and Roman, and nobody spoke English. I had an interpreter. It was a Czechoslovakian crew. Like I said, it was a German director, and I was like, I hadn't spoken English with anybody for 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And at one point, we looked up, and like you said, we were on the ocean, and we see a yacht. And this is like no yacht any of us had ever seen before. We all just stood there like, oh, man. Oh, by the way, I'd love to talk about what Prague was like back then as compared to what it was like now. But it was still a communist country when I was working there. But anyway, so we see this yacht out there, and it's like, oh my! We all notice it. Well, they're all talking amongst themselves, and I notice, and then we just go back to work, and then I notice, and whatever, everybody's working, a boat coming in from the yacht. Now, those ruins were somewhat of a touristy kind of, but I hadn't seen any. The entire time I was there, must be off the beaten track, because
it's great, a bit, it is.
Great Roman ruins, but I hadn't seen any tourists. But anyway, this boat comes in, and you could, once it got close, you could see there was a woman on the boat and a man driving the boat. And the guy pulls up to the shore, and a woman gets off the boat, and she starts walking up towards sort of where we're working. And it's a fucking Jackie Kennedy. It was Jackie Kennedy, who I immediately recognized and ran over and started babbling to, basically saying, I haven't had a chance to speak English to anybody for a long time, and you're Jackie Kennedy, so let's, let me tell you about what you're looking at here. Only because I knew a little bit about it, because I'd been shooting there, and I spent.
And you're in costume too, aren't you?
I don't remember, but
I think you said you were. Yeah, you're wearing this toga and this little, gay-looking little outfit. Your hair.
I had one of those leather things around my neck. I had the dog, the dog thing around my neck.
Piece wearing a codpiece over your over your crotch.
Jackie, come here. I want to talk to you. I never get it. Yeah, here. Let me take this. Anyway. So anyway, I got a chance to talk to her for about a half an hour, and she was really cool. And that yacht obviously belonged to
Aristotle Onassis.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, Aristotle Onassis. And so that's one of the perks of being an actor and going to work on movies that other people think, I don't think I'll do that one. All right. Well, see you next week. Bye.